Well, here we are for our second YouTube interview, all about sharing our story. So, thank you for joining us again. This is Kristin Ormiston, another one of the authors in our collaborative book coming out in just a few weeks. Kristin, thank you for being here. Welcome. Why don't you introduce
Morning.
yourself?
Good morning. My name is Kristin Ormiston. I am a friend of Kelly's from way back. And I am a musician and an educator and a human being that now lives in Smithers.
You do move around a lot, don't you?
I do.
I'm a little bit
I'm
confused
just
sometimes.
catching up with myself, I tell you, because as you know, I used to live in Japan, and then I have a home and farm on Pender Island, and I recently fell in love and moved to Smithers. So there you go.
There you go. Okay, so Kristin, how about you start off by sharing your story with us?
Okay. Well, I was born into a very wonderful family, a great extended family with a lot of BC history here. And my grandfather was the sea captain of the ships that used to supply the light stations between all the way up between the Alaska and Victoria. And I have lots of family in ship industry. And there's a few of us in our extended family that are artists. My sister's an artist and also a musician. And I have a cousin that's a visual artist. So we kind of come from this clan of very practical, hardworking, gritty people. And then there's a few of us that are super sensitive and artists. So yeah, that's been my journey.
And the rest of your story, what like that? So that's who you are, and I love that you're an artist. But
Okay.
how about the? We're all about sharing our stories. It's part of the collaborative book,
Right.
and so why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey?
Okay. So I got married very young, and I married a widower who already had two babies. And so I was only 20 and he was 22, and the babies were like 1 and almost 2 and 2 and almost 3. And he was also an artist. And so, yeah, we had our family young. Um, and so I had two more biological kids. And so by the time I was 24, I had 4 children. And my husband and I were artists and pursuing the arts, because that was sort of more what my ex-husband now was really, really gifted in music and acting and that sort of thing. And so I just kind of was along because I was exposed to it and became involved in the arts, mostly because that's what my ex-husband was pursuing. And then we sort of pursued it together and had a live theater company, and we loved doing sort of historically based musicals. And then sadly, after 21 years of being married, the marriage fell apart, and it was very devastating for me. And then I decided to go to Japan.
And what led you to Japan?
Well, because my passion had always been young children. It's still young children. I actually have an album for young children. And so I didn't really feel like in Canada that the value of the education of young children was at the same level as Japan. And so I felt that in Japan, because in the Japanese culture, there's such a strong investment into their children. The families pour, everybody collectively pours everything they can into the next generation in Japan. And that's why we have had many Japanese people come to Canada to get better English skills. And so that's because they have a group of people behind each child, ensuring that they get every opportunity that they could give them. And so I felt that a culture that was that passionate about their children would see the value of me and what I could offer, which was my passion for educating young children and using the arts to enrich their education. So I went there to pursue that, and I definitely found all that I was looking for in my creative and work life there. I was really valued, and I just loved working. I worked in amazing international school, and also I spent a couple of years near the base of Mount Fuji at another wonderful place of school. So yeah, that's why Japan. I didn't think Canada was that crazy about kids that they would pay me what I needed to be paid in order to survive.
And what brought you back?
Well, my of course I have my four children here, and living in isolation, um, you can't really grasp what it's like to live in isolation in Japan unless you do it, because it's a wonderful culture, but people are extremely close to their family members, and there's like your insiders and your outsiders. And on top of that, no matter how kind and warm those people are to you and welcoming, you don't have the language for close relationships. And it's a totally different culture. Even husband and wife roles are quite different. So I didn't foresee myself finding a new partner there because it would be a very different expectation than what is normal here. And I didn't think I could have a close enough relationship with someone that didn't share my first language. So I came back to be with my kids, to hope in hopes of finding another partner after being so heartbroken that my first marriage didn't work out. And my dad was also ailing at the time. And I felt that he wasn't long for this world. And as it turned out, I was correct. So I had sort of sorted it out with the school in Tokyo that I would be 9 months in Canada and 3 months in Japan so that I could keep going and continue my work there, which has been wonderful and went on until March 9th. I was set to fly to Tokyo March 9th, 2020, which of course, didn't happen.
Right.
So that's I'm doing this project instead because I love to spend my several months a year with my little people in Japan. So
Right. Now, you mentioned you have an album for young children. I know you have an album not for young children, for
yeah,
everybody coming out.
yeah.
So, how do you use storytelling in your music, in your art?
Ah, well, um, in the children's album, I love to have the kids learning things that they don't know they're learning because it's music and it's fun. So I have a song called Ladybugs, which is all about the life cycle of ladybugs, but I've turned it into basically a party hardy if you're three. So they think, they're rocking, but they're also learning um, about the life cycle, a science thing. And I was actually invited, I worked with two wonderful teachers at that time. And they asked me, they said, we're doing this, this section on life cycles. Could you write us something? And so that came out definitely for an educational purpose, right? And then for my own, like you're talking about my folk album, so this is my first debut album that's not a children's thing. And for me, it's a lot of the songs were just written to survive heartbreak. And some of them are happy too. But yeah, that's, I guess, how when I feel very strong emotions, it's sort of how I cope with feeling those emotions and how I process things and how I may process grief or joy. So yeah,
Right.
that
So,
makes good answer.
um, my question with that is, it's a big leap from creating for yourself to process it all and then to share it with the world
Mm,
and to put it out there for public consumption. So, what is it that has compelled you to do that? Because I know a lot of talented artists that don't do that. They just keep it to themselves. It's scary.
yeah. Well, that's a great question, and something I've really learned about myself through pandemic thing and everything else. So I am inspired to create music um, when I really love someone. So when I'm in Tokyo, I really love my students. They are just the apples of my eye. I just adore them. And so in, say, composing the Ladybug song, it was for a very specific group of 3-year-olds and that were incredibly precious to me. So I wanted to create something so that I could give them this experience of joy.
Right.
And so that for me is part of the inspiration. This folk album, my dear friends opened an incredible um, stage, venue, and restaurant on Pedro Island, just like 3 minutes down the road from where I lived. And we had Thursday night jam nights. And so what happened for me there is, that kind of affection that I felt for my students in Japan became the affection I felt for members of the community that would come into the restaurant. And I just really, really enjoyed them. And I wanted to give them something. So when it was jam night, I would be in my studio above my barn. I have a big barn and I have a studio up there. So I would be madly working on songs because I knew that Thursday was going to be jam night and I wanted to give them the song. I wanted to give them that experience of the song. And because, yeah, I just like giving to people I care about. And so this is probably why I've never pursued being famous or being known outside of my personal relationships, because for me, my music has always been very specific for people that I love. And you can't really love strangers, right? Um, because you don't know them. And for me, it takes to know somebody to adore them. And with what happened with COVID, all of a sudden, actually, sadly, that restaurant is completely out of business due to COVID, and it likely will never be again. And so my whole sort of joy of that job and that connection to those people is now gone. I can't give them any music. And so when they email me or we chat or like by phone or whatever, they're always asking about my songs. They're always asking about my music. So for me to put this together as an album, it's really quite specifically for those people I adore on Pender Island. And then while I'm at it, the rest of the world is welcome to listen in. And
Right.
I'd like to give it to them too. Just like with the children's music, if I see a little 3-year-old or whatever, I'll often direct them to my Spotify or my Apple Music and say, hey, I have some fun music that maybe you'd like to hear. So it's kind of a byproduct of how much I love my kids in Tokyo. These other kids are benefiting too. And I get feedback from people that are, kids that are really enjoying it. So that's always fun too.
Cool. That's awesome. So you decided to be a part of the collaborative book that is coming out at the end of February. That's a very different way of sharing your story or what's going on in your life. Why did you decide to do that and put your story, very personal story, into writing?
Yeah. Well, many, many times people said, you should write a book about your life. And I think, oh, that's way too much work. And quite frankly, I don't want people other than those who are close to me to know the details about my life. But then you proposed this project that was like one chapter. And I really didn't know which part of my story I would tell until we went through the process together, all of us as workshopping. And I love collaborating. I love working with other people. It's my favorite thing. Like with my album, I love hearing my friends who are the musicians on the album. I just love hearing what they did with my music. It's one of my favorite parts. So I love working with others. So that was a great thing, opportunity. I thought, wow, it's not just me writing something. It's a group of people and I get to be a part of that. So that was a big reason. And it was very scary. As you know, I really worked through some stuff because I am giving some dirt on myself and on people like I'm from a family of imperfect humans, and we all impact one another's lives due to our imperfections. And some of the topics are even taboo because it's, to do with some mental illness. And so I don't know, I guess there's a part of me that fights against being controlled and hiding things. I like to bring things to light. My favorite story when I was a kid was The Emperor Has No Clothes.
Mhm.
I just was like, I love this kid. This kid is my hero. That guy is naked and he's being made a fool of. And he's doing that emperor a favor, was always how I felt. Wasn't that I delighted in the emperor getting humiliated. It was like, these other people, they're not helping this guy out. And so I do love truth, and I do love truth that sets us free. And I know a lot of people. I'm not the only person who's had the kind of experience that I've had, and I want to encourage them, and yeah, we don't need to be ashamed. This is the truth. We're all broken people. We've all got our stuff, and let's heal, let's grow, let's move forward.
Right. Uh, that takes care of my next question, which was, who are you hoping to help with your experiences? But
Sorry.
no, totally fine. I love that you went there because that's really ultimately the whole goal, is to show people that they're not alone in whatever they're going through and what they're afraid to bring to light, that there are other people that have gone through it, that are going through it and have made it to the other side.
Yeah.
So there's hope. There's there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And, I remember being young, and I've been on the pursuit of truth and knowledge for a long time. And when I was young, I mean, I was digging, 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 because I was like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Why can't I function and succeed as the other normal people that I'm seeing achieve and function so well? What is the problem with me? And so I was digging, digging, digging into like, and I remember thinking of older, getting a hold of something that somebody older wrote or put out there. Like, and then back then it was at the library. Remember that, Kelly?
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in a very rural place. There was 99 people in Rosebud where we were doing theater, and it was like a 50-kilometer drive to get milk or gas or get out a book. And I was in the self-help section, and from my early 20s on, just trying to figure out what is wrong with me. Why can't I function like the normal, quote unquote, people? And so I'm now 51. I'll be 52 in March. And I'm now one of the older people.
It's kind of a weird realization, isn't it? Sometimes you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's me now.
Yeah. Like, oh, I better step up, because I'm getting to be one of the ones that should have some notes for the people that are younger. And I'm really quite excited about this age, about being able to share, to equip young people to get through this more quickly than I did. And especially because I have such a passion for young children. So these are now the parents of the young children, right? And these people in their 20s, 30s, they're raising the next generation. And to try and give them all that they can have, wisdom, and have a healthy environment due to healing themselves, every kind of tip or anything I can give them to push them forward to have a happier life themselves and create a happier, healthier environment for their children. That is my investment in the future. So,
And it's almost like you feel compelled to do that.
yeah, like a responsibility. Like, I
Yeah.
survived, and I survived for a reason. Because there were times, like in Japan, when my brother died, it was everything I could do not to commit suicide. And I mean that on an hourly basis for weeks and weeks and weeks. I was suicidal, and I pushed through that by just loving my children so much that I couldn't put them through more. They had already been through so much heartbreak, and I just could not put them through the loss of their mom. But actual how painful my life was at that time was unbearable. But I
Yeah.
I managed to be there for myself. And that's, I think I mentioned that in a few of my notes. Like, maybe nobody's here for me, but I'm here for me.
Well, and to be so far away
Mhm.
from family, from loved ones, from close friends
Yeah.
would mean that you only really had yourself to count on. So,
Yeah. Like, I had my disfiguring facial surgery, and I didn't have anybody to bring me a sandwich. I mean, I was disfigured and in excruciating physical pain, and not knowing what I would even look like, because my nose was pulled up, and like children would cry in the grocery store if they saw me. And there was nobody to even bring me a sandwich. And similarly to when my brother passed away, like, to not be able to grieve with my family. or anyone that cared for him. I mean, it was very dark, dark, dark days. And what I took away is that I had grace for me, and that nobody, what can you do to someone if I all I need is to be there for myself? Yeah, it's very
Such
empowering.
that's actually a huge gift, which is what we talk about in the book too, which is the gift in our stories.
Yeah.
Um, wow, you have so many stories you could tell. I know you do. Your chapter in the book hasn't even touched the surface of everything you could tell. What would you say was the best part of your experience? And I know we're still in the middle of it because the book won't launch for a few more weeks, but what's the biggest thing that you got out of being a part of this collaborative project?
The other authors who are involved, getting to know them, and the excitement I feel about reading their chapters. I think there's 11 of us and there's 10 other. It just so happened that we all ended up being women because we didn't actually set out with that goal, right?
Nope, not at all.
But it just happened, and we're a lot of us are kind of in. There's a few young people, but we've all got some years behind us, and um, I'm like what I'm learning from the other ladies, and to have them share. I felt also that it was like I could share something so personal because they were sharing something so personal. And really, I felt like all of us were doing it as an offering to give to others that are coming up yet. So, yeah, that was my favorite part.
Right. It's passing on that hope
Yeah.
that you can get through whatever it is.
Yes.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of our interview today. Thank you for sharing so much of yourself and your experiences with us. I know that you have your album coming out.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online? Do you have a website? How can they find you, your music when it's released? All of that.
Yeah. So, if they're interested, if they have children, then Apple Music or Spotify will, if you put in Mrs. Kristin, and it's with an IN, the kids' album is there. It's called Way Down, and that's already accessible to anyone with little people. And then the folk album, which is going to be called Love Found Me, will be released at the end of March sometime. And I've got a couple pre-released tracks that are already on Apple Music and Spotify. And again, that's just you fire in my name, Kristin Ormiston, and you will find a few pre-released tracks, but the whole album will be available near the end of March. So yeah, I'm really excited. It's another fun thing to release the book and see, okay, well, how do you do that? And okay, well, how can I apply some of this to the album release? Because had it not been for COVID, I'd just be playing live.
Right.
I guess.
COVID has brought some gifts.
Yeah.
We will make sure that when we put up all the promo for this episode and stuff, we'll include as many links as we can, as I can find, or that we can include in the posts and that kind of thing, so people
Yeah,
can
and I
find.
will try and have it ready so that when the book is launched, that we have a pre-order page, so that if people buy the book and they want to pre-order the album, they can do that at the same time.
Awesome.
And
Very
as you know,
cool.
there's an actual song that relates to my chapter in the book, and that's that
Yes.
title song, Love Found Me. So that's how I ended up in Smithers, is Love Found Me.
And we're hoping to have a preview of that song at our book launch on February 25th. So
Absolutely.
something to look forward to. If people want to join our book launch, they can find us on uh, Facebook at Epic Exchanges, and all the information's there. And if you you don't even actually have to be on Facebook to join the book launch. So let us know in comments on Apple Podcasts, or on our podcast page on Libsyn, because some people go there and listen there, and we'll make sure that you get the link so that you can join us. Thank you, Kristin. Thank you for sharing your story and for being part of this collaborative book.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's been a wonderful experience, and I look forward to what happens next.
Awesome.